remember this feeling? That little spark when you heard the words Assassin's Creed and it didn't immediately make you groan and check your watch?
Oh, I definitely do. It felt like it was promising a generation-defining adventure. We got this incredible mix of historical deep dives. We got silky smooth parkour and a sci-fi mystery that was actually pretty cool. Each new game felt like a genuine event.
It was your own personal time machine, a chance to walk with the legends. I always wanted to go back and just casually mention the idea of a helicopter to Leonardo da Vinci, just to see if he'd take the credit for it.
Of course you did. Let's be real. What happened to the series we loved? How did we get from being a slick, stealthy badass to, well, a bloated, boring, and soulless grindfest?
And how did one of the most beloved names in all of gaming become a running gag for creative bankruptcy? Well, we've got a hot take for you. Assassin's Creed should have been put out to pasture about a decade ago.
That's a pretty bold claim to make.
And this isn't just about one series losing its way. We're going to tell you the story of how a company's refusal to let its golden goose die with dignity led to the creative collapse that nearly brought the whole house down. This is how milking a dead franchise broke Ubisoft.
To really get how far the series has fallen, you have to remember just how high it flew. When the first Assassin's Creed came out in 2007, there was nothing else like it. It was actually one of my favorite games.
The whole concept was completely out there. You play a bartender, Desmond Miles, who relives the memories of his ancestor, Altair, a master assassin during the Third Crusade. It honestly sounds like a fever dream, but somehow it just kind of worked.
And the parkour! Even if it feels a little stiff now, it was mind-blowing back then. The freedom to climb literally anything and see an entire city as this vertical playground, it was intoxicating.
But it was Assassin's Creed 2 that really launched the series into the stratosphere. With Ezio Auditore, we got one of the most charismatic heroes in gaming history. You got to watch him grow from a vengeful kid into a wise grandmaster over 3 entire games.
Ezio was actually my favorite of them all. Renaissance Italy was breathtaking. The gameplay was so much tighter, and that whole Abstergo Templar plot thickened into something you couldn't put down. The series was on top of the world, and I know I spent hours playing it.
Then came Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. After a stumble with the ambitious but clunky Assassin's Creed 3, Ubisoft took a huge swing. They gave us a pirate fantasy marrying the series' core ideas with incredible naval combat. I guess you could say they were tired of climbing towers and they just wanted to see what else was out there.
You had to, didn't you? Black Flag was an open-world masterpiece that just understood the simple joy of exploration. It was so good, people joked it was the best pirate game ever made. It just happened to have Assassin's Creed on the box. The game was a huge success, with Ubisoft reporting it had shipped 11 million copies. Later on, they revealed it had actually reached 34 million unique players, showing that its incredible, long-lasting appeal.
This was the golden age. Ubisoft had the Midas touch, and Assassin's Creed was their crown jewel. They had a money printing machine that also happened to get amazing reviews. They seemed unstoppable, but with their first next-gen exclusive, we started to see the cracks.
So let's set the scene. The year is 2014. The PS4 and the Xbox One are still shiny and new, and we're all waiting for that true next-gen moment. Ubisoft steps up and says, "We got this," with Assassin's Creed Unity. The setting, Paris during the French Revolution. The ambition, completely through the roof.
Unity was supposed to be the next great leap forward. The graphics were, and honestly still are, gorgeous. The scale of Paris, the massive crowds, the perfect recreation of Notre Dame. It was a technical marvel. They even overhauled the parkour with parkour up and parkour down controls. On paper, it was the ultimate Assassin's Creed.
And then we all played it, and it was a complete and utter train wreck. It honestly upset me the most. Unity became the poster child for buggy, unfinished games and made you want to rage quit.
You probably remember those hilarious glitches, like characters with no faces, which was truly a head scratcher. But then there were the game breaking performance drops that made it nearly unplayable. The backlash was absolutely deafening.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you watched me rage quit a few times. All of that goodwill Ubisoft had spent years building up, it vanished overnight in a strange way. Unity should have been the end. It was the absolute peak of the original formula. They pushed their tech and their design to its breaking point, and the whole thing just came crashing down.
It was a beautiful, flawed, overambitious disaster. It showed the series' incredible potential, but it also proved that an annual release schedule was completely unsustainable. This was the perfect spot for a graceful exit. Let the series rest. Let Unity be a cautionary tale about the hubris you know. The Templars. It could have been a legendary and poetic ending.
But Ubisoft didn't see a tragedy. They saw a spreadsheet with a damaged asset. Instead of letting the franchise die with dignity, they hooked it up to life support. And in doing that, they signed the series' death warrant and, as we'll see, eventually their own.
After the Unity disaster, Ubisoft did what any massive corporation would do. Well, they panicked. Their next game, Syndicate, was the definition of playing it safe. Victorian London was neat, but the game was just kind of fine.
It was polished, sure, but totally uninspired. It was the first clear sign that innovation was being pushed aside for safe iteration. The sales reflected that. You could feel the magic was, well, gone.
So they took a year off, their first break ever, and then they retooled. But what came next wasn't the Assassin's Creed we all know and love. With 2017's Assassin's Creed Origins, the series was reborn as a giant open-world RPG.
The tight, satisfying stealth gameplay? Gone. It was replaced with loot, levels, and damage numbers. Now, don't get me wrong, Origins was actually a good game. I did quite enjoy it, actually. Ancient Egypt was incredible, and Bayek's story was genuinely great. It performed well with estimates suggesting it sold around about 5.4 million units with Steam alone. But it wasn't really an Assassin's Creed game anymore.
Exactly, and the one-hit kill Hidden Blade, the signature weapon of the entire series, was now just another stat stick. You could sneak up on high-level enemies, but it kind of barely tickled them. The series' whole identity was sacrificed just to chase the RPG trend.
And if Origins was the test run, Odyssey was that formula on steroids. The map was absurdly huge. The game became an endless checklist of icons for you to clear that could stretch for over 100 hours. Trust me, I know, I did that. It leaned way into fantasy with demigod powers. It felt totally out of place. It was built from the ground up to be a live service game, complete with microtransactions to help you get through the grind.
Then came Valhalla. Bigger, longer, and even more bloated. Sure, it sold well and had a ton of players, but the criticism from longtime fans got even louder. These games weren't historical sandboxes anymore. They were theme parks. The core gameplay wasn't being a silent predator. It was about clearing camps and watching numbers go up. The soul of the series was just gone, replaced by the most generic mechanics in modern gaming.
The recent attempt to return to roots with Mirage just made the whole thing sadder. It felt less like a full game and more like a piece of Valhalla DLC. The smaller scale was a relief, but the mechanics were just a shallow copy of the Golden Age games.
It was basically them admitting that they'd lost their way, but they had no idea how to get back. And now with multiple Assassin's Creed games in the pipeline, like the delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows and a Black Flag remake, it's clear that they've learned absolutely nothing. They're not managing a franchise, they're trapped by it.
This obsession with the Assassin's Creed formula didn't just stay in one place. It became the blueprint for Ubisoft's entire strategy. Find a hit, then copy-paste it until every single one of us is absolutely sick of it.
Just look at Far Cry. Since the masterpiece that was Far Cry 3, what's really changed? You get a new exotic location, a new villain who loves to give long speeches, and the exact same gameplay loop of liberating outposts. It's become the world's most dangerous game of make the red icons go away. Far Cry 4, 5, and 6 are basically the same game in a different hat.
I loved Far Cry as well. Or what about Rainbow Six, another game that I loved? Siege was a brilliant tactical shooter that fans loved, like I said, including me. So what was the plan? Just endless seasons of Siege. The creativity died and was replaced by a live service money machine designed to sell battle passes and cosmetics. For years, Ubisoft's entire business was propped by these aging franchises.
Instead of using the billions that they made to create the next big thing, they just kept kind of making more of the same thing. They avoided risk, they hated originality, and they clogged their own pipeline with so many sequels that there was no room for new ideas. They really took the leap of faith out of their own business plan.
And in early 2023, that strategy finally blew up in their faces. So in January of that year, Ubisoft announced what amounted to a full-blown catastrophe. Citing sales that were weaker than they expected, they canceled 3 unannounced games on top of 4 others that they had already axed the year before.
They also announced a massive write-down of around £500 million for cancelled and upcoming games. The market's reaction was brutal, with the company's stock price just absolutely plummeting to rock bottom.
CEO Yves Guillemot even admitted their strategy was failing. The company that once looked invincible was now in a fight for its life. The poison that started with the one franchise had infected the entire company. Their refusal to let Assassin's Creed die has led them to the brink of ruin.
You know, the most frustrating part of all of this is that it didn't have to go down this way. While Ubisoft was busy photocopying its own homework, other studios were out there just taking huge risks and even getting bigger rewards.
Look at Larian Studios. They took a niche genre, the CRPG, and created Baldur's Gate 3, a game with staggering depth and freedom. It was a massive risk that became a global phenomenon, selling millions and millions of copies.
We even did a video about that by the way, a video about the release of the show Baldur's Gate, so you make sure to give that a watch as well. But what about From Software? After creating the Souls genre, they didn't just make endless sequels, they evolved. They gave us Bloodborne, Sekiro, and then Elden Ring, a brand new IP that masterfully translated their formula to a true open world.
It was a landmark game that has sold over 25 million units and completely redefined the genre.
And don't forget Hazelight Studios. They committed to making co-op only games, which sounds crazy, but with It Takes Two, they created one of the most inventive and heartfelt games in years. It sold over 16 million copies and even won Game of the Year. It really proves that it takes two to make a thing go right.
These studios proved something that Ubisoft forgot. All of us are hungry for new things. We reward creativity. Just imagine if, after Unity, Ubisoft had used its billions to let its talented studios create their own versions of Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3. What new worlds could we have explored?
Instead, they chose the safe path. They clung to what was familiar, prioritizing quarterly earnings over long-term creative health. And in a beautiful poetic irony, that safe path turned out to be the most dangerous one of all, leading them to a creative dead end and a financial cliff. It's a sad story, and it's one that's been a decade in the making. But now we want to know what you all think. When do you believe it all went wrong for Ubisoft?
Was it the broken launch of Unity? The RPG pivot with Origins? Or do you think the seeds of disaster were planted even earlier? Let us know down in the comments. We're genuinely curious to see where you all think the real turning point was. The story of Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed is a cautionary tale for the whole industry. It's about what happens when creative passion turns into corporate obligation and how relying on one aging franchise can kill innovation and alienate your biggest fans.
For a decade, Ubisoft kept Assassin's Creed on life support, pumping it full of RPG mechanics, microtransactions, and bloated content just to keep it relevant. But all they really did was desecrate the memory of a once great series.
The identity, the spirit, the fun, it was all carved out and replaced with a soulless, formulaic grind. Now, facing a corporate crisis of their own making, they're talking about a reset. They're promising to do better, but is it too little too late?
After a decade of choosing spreadsheets over stories and metrics over magic, can they really find that spark again? Or are they just rearranging the deck chairs on a ship that's been sinking for 10 years?
The trust has been broken. And it all started with one fatal decision: the refusal to grant a hero's death to a franchise that should have died a decade ago.